People spend their whole lives waiting for 3 words that never come. I'm sorry, and maybe. You ray one of Tim. Maybe you're still carrying a wound someone left behind. A parent? A friend? A partner? Someone who hurt you, walked away, and never looked back. You tell yourself you've moved on, but the scar still aches when the world gets quiet. This is the story of a man who healed from the apology he never got. His name was Adam, and he lived in a small apartment above a noisy street. The kind where you can hear the whole world passing by but still feel completely alone. To everyone who saw him, he seemed perfectly fine. He had a steady job. He smiled at the right times, and he always said, "I'm good," even when a storm was raging inside him. But at night, when the city lights dimmed and the sounds faded, a familial heaviness would rise in his chest. A memory that never loosened its grip, no matter how hard he tried to shake it. When Adam was 16, his father walked out. It wasn't a slow unraveling, it was a sudden tear in the fabric of his life. One moment, his family was a fragile but whole thing. The next, it was shattered. There was shouting that echoed off the walls, the deafening slam of a door, and the sound of a car engine fading into the distance. It was the last sound he ever heard from his father. The last words his father ever said to him were, "You're always in the way." He never called again. Not for birthdays, not for holidays, not even to ask if he was okay. The silence that followed was louder than the shouting ever was. There was no explanation, no goodbye, and most importantly, no apology. Pain doesn't just disappear when you grow up. It finds new places to hide. It grows with you, twisting itself into the person you become. For Adam, that pain became the quiet, unseen architect of his life. He carried those words, "You're always in the way," like a secret shame. Whenever something went wrong at work, he'd hear his father's voice and blame himself. Whenever a friend pulled away, he assumed it was because he was too much, too needy, somehow in the way. He built walls around his heart, not to keep others out, but to keep his own brokenness in. The walls were so high, so thick, that even he couldn't see past them anymore. He lived in a prison of his own making, with a ghost for a warden. He learned to be small, to take up less space, to never ask for too much. Because deep down, he believed he didn't deserve it. He thought that if he could just be perfect enough, quiet enough, invisible enough, maybe he wouldn't be in the way. Maybe then, someone would stay. One rainy afternoon, Adam was sitting in his usual corner at a local cafe, staring into his cold coffee. The cafe owner, a kind, older man named Mr. Harris, brought him a fresh cup. He looked at Adam, his eyes holding a gentle wisdom, and said, "You look like someone carrying a storm inside." For the first time in years, Adam didn't say, "I'm good." The words caught in his throat. He just whispered, his voice barely audible, "I'm waiting for someone to fix what they broke." Mr. Harris sat down across from him. He didn't offer easy platitudes or empty he simply listened, and then he said something that would change everything for Adam. "There are 2 kinds of pain," he began, his voice soft but firm. "There's the pain of what happened, and there's the pain of waiting for someone else to undo it. The first one is a wound. The second is the salt you keep pouring into it." He leaned in slightly. "Some apologies never come, Adam. Some people will never understand the depths of the hurt they caused. But your healing doesn't have to wait for them. It can't." Those words hung in the air long after Mr. Harris had walked away. The pain of what happened, and the pain of waiting. Adam realized he had been living in both. He had been anchored to the past, waiting for a ship that was never going to return to shore. He was waiting for his father to come back and say, "I'm sorry, it wasn't your fault." He was waiting for permission to heal. That night, back in his quiet apartment, the rain tapping against his window, Adam did something he had never done before. He took out a pen and a piece of paper. He wasn't writing to his father. He was writing to the 16-year-old boy who was still frozen in time, standing in a silent house, listening to a car drive away. He wrote, "Dear younger me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry no one protected you. I'm sorry you were made to feel like a burden. I'm sorry you thought it was your fault." The ink bled slightly on the page as a tear fell. "You deserved better. You deserved a father who stayed. You were just a kid. It was never, ever your fault." As he wrote those words, a profound shift happened inside him. For the very first time, he heard the apology he so desperately needed, and it came from the only person who could truly deliver it. It came from himself. He was finally giving that wounded boy the compassion he had been denied for so long. The next day, something felt different. The air seemed lighter. The usual weight on his chest was still there, but it wasn't as crushing. Driven by a new kind of courage, he found his father's number online. His heart pounded as he stared at the screen. He imagined calling. He played out the entire conversation in his head. The awkward hello. The long silence. He imagined asking the question that had haunted him for over a decade. Why? He imagined finally getting the apology, the closure he thought he needed to move on. But then, as his thumb hovered over the call button, he had another realization, clearer than any before. He no longer needed words from a man who never knew how to give them. An apology from his father wouldn't erase the years of pain. It wouldn't magically mend the broken pieces. The healing wasn't in his father's hands. It was in his own. He put the phone down, and for the first time, it wasn't an act of fear or avoidance. It was an act of strength. It was a declaration of independence. He was letting go of the weight. Healing, Adam learned, wasn't a single event. It was a slow, deliberate process, like tending to a garden. It came slowly, day by day. He started therapy, learning to unravel the knots of shame and self-blame that had been tied so tightly for so long. He learned to be kinder to himself, to treat himself with the same gentleness he so icily offered to others. He started letting people in, one small, terrifying step at a time. He started to believe that he wasn't in the way. He started to believe he had a right to take up space in the world. A few months later, he was on a walk with Emily, a woman he'd been seeing. They had a connection that felt real, but he'd kept his walls up, terrified she'd leave if she saw the real him. That evening, as they watched the sunset paint a sky, he decided to tell the truth. "My father left when I was 16, he said, his voice steady. "I spent most of my life thinking it was my fault. I don't believe that anymore." He braced himself for her reaction, for pity, for awkwardness, for her to pull away. But Emily didn't do any of those things. She simply reached over, squeezed his hand, and said, "I'm glad you stayed." In that moment, he understood. The love he was receiving wasn't a replacement for the love he had lost. It was something new, something he had earned by choosing to heal himself. You may never hear "I'm sorry" from the person who hurt you. The apology you've been waiting for might never arrive. But your story doesn't have to end there. You can learn to be your own rescuer. You can give yourself the compassion, the validation, and the forgiveness you need. Because sometimes, the most powerful and life-changing apology you will ever receive is the one you finally give to yourself. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing. Your healing journey is yours, and you are worthy of it.